everyone, welcome back to Art Impressions Watercolor Wednesday. This is Kendra Krebs bringing you a very fun little landscape scene here. And the lesson this week is how to make this flowing stream. Of course, we're going to feature our darling little fawn here. So if you're interested in learning how to make this, keep watching. So I am going to be using 3 sets, all from the Bible journaling series. And the first one is going to be As the Deer set, and I'm going to be using this little grassy area with the tree, this tiny little fawn, as well as these rocks here. I'm not going to be using these two, but they would certainly be adorable in this project as well. I'm also going to use this little guy from the Bible flower set. And this is typically used as a flower, however, it does kind of have a leafy vibe to it as well. So I'm going to be using this for the tree leaves. And then also several of these. So this is the Bible foliage set. I'm going to be using the teeny tiny grass, the larger jumbo grass, this little bushel of little leaves, and then this tree right here. Okay, so let's get started. So my paper is the Canson watercolor paper. And that is about a 9 by 12, but I have quartered that off and just used one of the pieces. This is Post-it tape around the edges so that I get a really nice sort of framed look around this. And this measures about 4 inches by 3 inches width, okay? So let's get started. I'm going to be using this little grassy area with the tree first. And I'm going to ink this using the Tombow 969. So I'll ink this whole thing. And I'm going to use the 565 darker blue on just the rocks. So I'm just going to give this one little swipe on the rocky areas. I'm going to stamp this in this little vicinity right here, just like that. Okay, now I'm going to take my ruler, which is right here, and I'm going to let this kind of sit just for a moment because last time I did this, I grabbed my ruler much too quickly and I ended up sort of smearing this area. This is the little piece I'm most concerned about because it's the darkest, but we're probably okay. So you want to draw your horizon line because this is what we need to set, to basically decide where our background meets the middle ground meets the foreground, okay? So our background is going to be anything above this horizon line. Okay, so I want my water to be kind of flowing around here to give the illusion that the water is flowing from back here and it's just kind of snaking its way through the landscape, okay? So in order to do that, I can't have it start here. It has to start just a little bit back. So I want to take my ruler and I want to draw a line just a little bit above the base of that first rock. Just like that. And I want to do it really lightly because I'm going to come back and erase. And then the second one I'm going to do is going to be the where the land sort of jets back into the water. So I'm going to draw another little line, very light, just like that. Okay, so this is my guide and I'm going to freehand a stream. So you can do this however you want to. If you want it more straight, you can do it more straight. But this is really nice because you just kind of do your first little curve here, and then as you come back to this curve, you should be halfway through or the center of that next curve, and then you're going to come back. So I'll show you. So the stream is going to start behind the rocks, right? So I'm going to just have this little curve right here. And because this is pencil, I can always erase and try again. But I'm going to have it kind of flow this way. And it's not quite the center, but that's okay. Okay, so I've got my little stream now. And I want to put just a little bit of a line here to remind me that I need to put some grass and stuff here, okay? Now I'm going to take my fawn And I'm gonna stamp him sort of in here, in that vicinity, because I want him to be close to the water, but not so close that his little feet like are in the water. So I'm gonna stamp him kind of here, and I don't want to stamp him too far back because that would make him look huge in the you know, far background. And I want to really set this back far. We're gonna put another hill back here. So I want him to kind of be in this area right there. So I'm gonna ink him using the 969. And his whole body. And I'm gonna stamp him just about here. And remember, like if he's not in a good spot, you know, if you don't like where he is, you can always redraw your stream to make him sort of be on the land, okay? So once you draw in that stream, I mean, you have an eraser, you can always erase it and come back in and restamp it or redraw it, okay? So now that we have him in there, I'm gonna put some rocks into our stream, and I'm gonna color this using the 969 first, and then over the top, the 565. And we do this to get that really nice gray. So I'm gonna stamp this off just once on my watercolor paper, just because I know it's gonna be really dark. So I'm going to stamp that in about here, and then I'll stamp another one maybe here, okay? Now I am going to take my brush and a little bit of water. I've got my water right here. And I really want to get those air pockets out. So I'm going to push that brush right up against the edge and get any air pockets out of there, okay? Oops, I streaked his little legs because he wasn't dry. That's exactly what I was talking about when I was saying make sure it's dry, like when you measure. But this is actually okay because he's gonna have brown on his legs and everything anyway, so I'm not even the slightest bit concerned about that. But we are going to take our brush now, very, very dry, not too dry, but dry enough to where our water isn't going to just be seeping everywhere when we go to color him in. And I'm just putting those initial lines in, or you kind of putting that initial color in. And then you can always come back in. Like right now, things feel a little bit streaky. So I'm gonna come back in with the water only and just kind of soften those edges, those lines just a little bit. And I'm gonna bring the water up into his face. I wanna leave the center of his face just a little bit lighter. But I do wanna give the visual that he is brown. Okay. His neck is going to be darker here, but as we get to his back, that's going to be lighter. Okay. His little legs will be dark. Of course, this inside, the interior of the legs, that's going to be nice and dark, as is his abdomen. Okay, I'm gonna leave his tail white because I want that white at the end. So I'm not gonna color that in for now. And then I'm gonna take the rocks and just add a little bit of water. Do you see how that's nice and gray because we added that blue initially? The top of the rocks are going to remain white because they're kind of like domes. Anything that's a dome is gonna be left white on top. And if you need a refresher on that, you can check out any of the basics videos. She really talks about this when she's doing the truck with the dome, okay. All right, so now I'm gonna use my palette and I'm going to bring in the grassy areas here because this is gonna give us a nice visual of where our land is and where our water is. So this is 177. And I'm going to take that 177 and I'm just going to wash this across the land any area that is land, I'm just going to put this in. You don't need to be super careful on here. If you get some brown, well, there's soil and grass, right? Grass grows in the soil, so it's no big deal. And then again, over here, it's okay if you get a little bit on his feet. No big deal. I'm going to take that and come all the way up in here. So I do want to avoid kind of the brown in his tail because I want this to be set further back. So you're not going to see as much of the brown back in there. And I just got a little bit of his ear right as I said that, of course, but that's okay. It's not going to be a big deal. Okay. I've got my greenery pretty much in. This is kind of just the base of it. All right, and I do want a little bit of moss on my rocks. So I'm going to just bring a little bit of this green on the rocks, and I am going to bring a brighter green. So this is the 126. We don't sell this, but any lime green will work for you. So this is the 126. I think it's called light olive. Whoops. Okay. I'm going to take that light olive color and I'm going to put it right at the bank as well. Right where the water meets the land. Because I think it gives a really beautiful, like, mossy look right there too, because we know moss grows where the water flows. That rhymed. Okay. Just like that. All right. Got a nice base here now for the rest of my project. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in this background hill. So I'm going to take my pencil again, and I'm just going to very lightly kind of draw in this background hill. And I'm going to color that in using the 249. So 249. And I'm going to take this, and this is going to be pretty dark. I want a nice dark difference where my horizon line is. So remember we drew that initial horizon line to decide where we wanted our water to flow out from. That is sort of the line that says, you know, this, anything past this is going to be really, really, really far away. Okay. So this is going to be far away. And I like to change up the colors when I do things that are really far away, because it makes it a little bit easier on the eye to decipher what is close and what is far. Just coloring this in very gently, avoiding the ear here. And right at this base, I want this to be dark. So I am going to bring in just the detailed tip of that 249. And I want this to be nice and dark right across that horizon line, just like that. And I'll just soften it just ever so slightly. Okay. Water. Here we go. You ready? So the water is really fun, but you do want to keep in mind, if you do horizontal strokes, it's not going to look like it's flowing towards you. It's going to look like it's either stagnant or flowing horizontally, and we want it to flow vertically towards us, okay? So I'm going to use the 528. So 528. I want to get a good amount on there because I'm going to use that same color for the sky. So I'm going to grab the 528 and I'm going to start back here behind that first rock. And I'm just going to pull this water. So back in here, it's okay to have it a little bit more dense because This is in the background. And a really important thing when you're doing streams like this is you want to make sure the further away it is, the smaller it gets. So this is our focal point for the stream right here. At a point, is it going to be wide or is it going to be really tiny? It's going to be tiny, right? So you're going to go small, and as you get closer, it's going to get bigger. So we can see this is much bigger than that tiny little point back here. And that's what's setting back that stream far. So we can see, we're actually seeing it flow quite a bit back here. Okay, so when you're doing a stream, you want it to start small in the background, and then as it comes closer to you, it's going to be larger. And that's going to be the same thing for any of the grasses or the flowers or the trees that you do. Anything that's close to you is going to be bigger. Anything that's far away from you is going to be smaller. Okay, so I'll take that blue and just, we're starting way back here, and then it's going to flow around these rocks. And the water is going to follow the land. The water is going to follow the land. The land decides where the water goes. So it's flowing. Okay. And then for this part, I am going to bring in just a very light sort of wash in here. This is going to flow around, and this is going to flow around as well. So it's kind of coming around the bend. Kind of like this. So this can be very light in here. This doesn't need to be dark. And your rivers and your streams and all of that, they're all going to look just a little bit different. So don't worry about it being perfect. It's going to all look kind of different every time. And, you know, that's how streams are anyway. So don't be too hard on yourself. The biggest thing you want to remember, small in the background and bigger as it comes forward. So we're going to keep coming around here, and it's going to kind of wash around the bend. And it's going to flow around this rock. I want a nice light wash in here. It's going to flow around the rock. And I am putting a really light blue kind of towards the middle. I don't want a ton of blue in the center, just because I do want to keep some highlights still. I can have some, I just want the darker areas to be like near the banks. So it's going to be darker in the background, and then as I get closer, we're going to get it to be just a little bit lighter. Okay, so we're bringing this around, and it's going to go kind of around that rock. Gonna go around these rocks. This is just gonna flow kind of like that. So can you kind of feel the flow now? You can do as much or as little of this blue as you want to. I kind of like to have some of these, you know, more obvious streaks in here. So this is gonna come around here. And around that rock. Okay, so we can see this river is really starting to flow now. Okay, so we're starting from a point. So even when these come out, so these streaks, we're starting from this point, and then as they come closer, they're getting wider. So all from one point, and then they're getting wider as they come down. And then when they flow around the rocks, well, the water has to flow around the rocks because it's not going to flow through them, right? So we can put a little bit of water, you know, this blue in between here. Okay, So let's continue on. We've got the base of our water, and we will come back in and add just a little bit more details to our water as we go, but we won't do that quite yet, okay? So now we're going to put in our trees and our bushes. I'm going to use this little leafy guy from that flower set, and I'm going to use 177. Ink this and begin to place in our leaves. And I want to stamp these in dark to light variation. So we're getting that, 4 to 5 images before we re-ink so that I get that lightness that I'm looking for. If I don't do that, I'm going to have it all dark and it's going to be not as multi-dimensional as we would like it to be. And keep in mind, the reason I'm using this leaf is because it makes sense with this tree. So you can use any leaf you want. If you want this tree to be set really, really far back, you can use something like this, the little bushel. These leaves would be teeny, teeny, teeny. If you set this really far back, then this trunk would actually be quite large. It would be really, really far back. These rocks would be really, really big. I want this to be a little bit closer, so I'm going to make sure my leaves are a little bit bigger. Really, it's the leaves that dictate how far back your tree is. If you have really teeny leaves like this, then it's supposed to be set back really far. And if you have a little bit bigger leaves that you can see the distinct leaves, that's going to be set closer to you, okay? So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to take this little bush and number 249, and I'm going to ink just half of it and put some of these little bushes in because I do want a nice, robust scene. So then I'm going to turn this to make it really easy for myself. And I'm going to put some of these little bushes in here. Okay. Maybe I'll bring this out just a little more. All right, let's add our water. So I'm going to take my water just a little bit and I'm going to pull off that excess and begin to dab. So I'm dabbing this. I'm going to pick up some of that brown. I'm fine with that. I don't mind that at all. If you don't want to pick up the brown, just be more careful when you're dabbing. I like the brown. I think it adds a very natural element to the branches. Some branches are dying. They're going to turn brown. Some branches, or some leaves, I'm sorry. Some leaves are, in the final stages of their lives before falling down to the ground. Okay, and then I'm also going to make my brush nice and thin like that. So I squeezed it and look, you can barely see it when it turns to the side. And I'm going to come right down this trunk on one side and then the other on the other side. And I'm going to keep this really dainty. I don't want to fill in this whole trunk. I don't think we need to. And then I'm going to come back in with a little bit more water and dab this little bush, both little bushes. This just adds a really nice foliage element, and it just kind of fills in the area a little bit more. Okay, so let's put in our grass, and the smaller grass is going to be set in the background. So I've got my 177 here, and I'm going to put this grass here, a little bit here, a little bit by his feet because he's sort of standing in the grass. We'll put just a very little bit back in here, a little bit on this bank. Okay, and then we're going to put just the bigger grass now, that jumbo grass. we'll put this just in the foreground. So this is going to be right in here. Now I've differentiated now foreground, middle ground, background, okay? And then I'm gonna put a little bit of this larger grass here. Before I add my water, I'm gonna add my trees back in here, and I'm gonna use number 249. So 249, I'm gonna ink that using that, and then also the 565, and I'm gonna ink that just kind of on the base of that tree. So look how much I'm actually inking, not the whole thing, right? And I'm gonna just start adding these trees in. And as I lose ink, I'm gonna go back in and re-ink using the same colors, but I'm not gonna ink as much because I want these to be a little bit shorter as they come toward the center. But I am going to use the same colors. So I'll wipe off just that base. And see how they get shorter as I come toward the center. And I just want this a little bit more there. Okay, I'm going to take my water and we're going to add our water to these trees in the very background. So you're not going to see a lot of details in these trees because they're really far back. So we just want kind of the idea of those trees back there. And just sort of dab and kind of bring those colors out just a little bit. You can kind of dab into here as well. So it's just kind of giving you the idea that there's a lot of trees, and this guy is, found this stream sort of in, the wilderness somewhere. So now I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to just pull out some of this grass. And same thing in here, and I'm going to go right over the stream in this area, because when you have grass that goes over the stream, it sets that river down. So it makes the land higher than the river. If you don't do that, sometimes the river can look higher than the land and you'll notice there's something that looks wrong, but you won't always know what. So that's a good thing to kind of keep in mind and look at when you're not sure. And I'm going to bring this grass around, and once again, this grass too. Of course, the grass on this side as well. Make that nice and big. Okay, so I'm gonna just add a few more details into here before we do our sky. So I'm gonna come in with my detail tip. This is the Tombow TwinTone. I'm gonna add in a little bit darker here, darken his eye and his nose, as well as add some shadows in here using this. So the inner side of the leg is going to be nice and dark, and also probably this little bit here. So now that I've put that in, I'm going to add my water just a little bit here. There we go. And that just sort of blends it in a little bit more. And I do want this to be a little bit darker, like right on his bum, because I'm going to put those adorable little dots in that you would see for a fawn. Okay, I'm going to use the same tip to kind of go along the edge of the water, just to give us, again, that really nice fine line of our land, between the land and the water. And then I'm also going to take that 528 and I'm going to just very lightly kind of outline where the water is on here. And this is totally up to you if you want to do this. I just kind of like to enhance the water flow. So I'll do the same thing as just lighten these up just a little bit. Just ever so slightly. Okay, so let's do our sky while this is drying, and then we can go back in and erase our pencil lines. So I'm going to use the 528, and I'm just going to begin putting in my sky. So every sky is going to be a little bit different. I usually put in the color, and then I'll go back in with my water alone and just sort of work through dabbing. And I like my sky to look sort of like a suggestion of a sky. You know, skies may not normally look like this, but it's just a suggestion of what I think maybe a sky would look like. So I'm gonna go around here. And anytime you're using, once again, just a reminder, anytime you're using this Post-it tape, you wanna go all the way up to that line. Okay. I'm going to bring my sky in here, maybe a little bit in there. And I'm just dabbing, I'm just like moving the water and the color around. So I'll add in the color with my first pass, and then I'll come back in with water alone on the second pass. So maybe I'll add in a little bit of blue here. So that was my color, and then now I'm just adding water to blend it out. Do you see how that blends out a little bit more? Maybe I want just a little bit more darkness up in here. It really does not matter how you do this. This to me just kind of gives me the idea of clouds. And if you want to do yours differently, that's totally fine. You can do yours however you want to. You know, all of us are going to have kind of a different outcome anyway, and it doesn't even matter if I do clouds that I love on one and I would want to do them the same way every single time. Like I'll never do the same clouds every time. It's the same thing as the water. I'll never do the water exactly the same. And even if you look at the original, you know, the clouds are very different, right? So it's really one of those things where you just kind of appreciate it every single time you do it, because it's going to be a little bit different. All right, so we're going to take our uni ball white, and we're going to put our little dots on him. And these are mostly going to be focused right on that back side here. So I zoomed in so you could see. And then I'm also going to give him just this little white chest, if my pen will allow it. There we go. Little white chest there. And I can just, you want to keep those kind of on that edge. And then also I'm going to take this and put a little bit into the water to help with the flow. So again, we're coming from that point, and then we're going to come out. Okay, really cute. This little chest here. So cute. Okay, now we are going to take off the Post-it tape, and we're going to see what this looks like. So we'll take off one side. Oh, and then we need to erase our lines, which we can do after. And like this. And then one more. Voila. Okay, let's erase our pencil lines. first make sure everything is nice and dry, and it is. Make sure your eraser doesn't have any color on it. No color, and use a white eraser. This is why you make the line very, very light, because pencil is, you think it's like an easy thing to erase, but it's not always. Make sure everything's dry in there. Okay. I had a line in here, and then a line up here. Okay, so I think that is it. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure to sign your work, of course. So I'll just sign it right here. If you learned something, let me know in the comments. If you don't follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, of course here on YouTube, we invite you to come follow us. You can follow us on Instagram at Art Impressions, and then also Bonnie Krebs Bible Journaling. So again, these were all Bible journaling stamps. If you like these, definitely check her out. There's some beautiful sentiments that go with these as well. And you could totally do this in your Bible very, very easily. So if you have not heard, every other week, I believe it's the first and third Wednesday of the month, we will not be doing Watercolor Wednesday. It will be on YouTube. It will be a live Watercolor Wednesday on Facebook. So Art Impressions, Rubber Stamps, Facebook, definitely check that out. So this next Wednesday, it will be another live where she answers your questions, and she'll go through some really fun different techniques for you to use. So I hope that you enjoyed this. If you want more inspiration, definitely check out Art Impressions Stamp Group on Facebook. It is not our group. It is a fan-based group run by the wonderful Carla. And so you'll answer a few questions before you get in, and then you will see all the beautiful inspiration. I think that group is almost up to 1,000 members. So definitely go check that out. And I will see you guys next time. Have a great day. Bye.